9:15. Welcome back to the morning show with Jeff and Will on AM 1700 WRCR, Haverstraw, WRCR.com. Joining us now, the editor and publisher of RCBizJournal.com. That's the Rockland County Business Journal. It's Tina Traster. Good morning, Tina. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Rockland Land. How is everybody today?
We here in Rockland Land are just super.
Good to hear. So today's theme is follow the money. As we know, as we all know, it's what journalists do. It's what investigators do. It's in those pesky little numbers that, generally speaking, the real stories are told. So we're gonna play follow the numbers, and we're going to play that on two fronts. One, we're going to look at Rockland Green's legal budgeting and legal expenses, and what the taxpayers of the county have been on the hook for in these last few years. And secondly, we're going to talk about the Knights of Columbus building in the town that the town of Haverstraw had tried to have donated to itself. The deal is now off, and there's some financial accounting that really needs to come to light. First, let's talk about Rockland Green and its legal budget. Now, bear with me because we're going to do some numbers here, but they are important. Beginning in 2022-2023, at the same time that Rockland Green was taking over animal management, they spent $4 million in that calendar year, which is quite an extraordinary amount of money. But that is not in a vacuum. The costs are continuing to escalate, mostly right now because Rockland Green and Hightor Animal Shelter are locked in a legal battle that really started last May, where the attorney Lawrence Garvey, who now is in-house counsel for Rockland Green, decided to sue the board members individually and the executive director, who is, yes, my husband, Rick Tannenbaum. Of course, the board members had to be released from the case because individual board members cannot be held responsible for a contract dispute between a nonprofit, which is Hightor, and Rockland Green. So that wasted months of litigation. And then, similarly, the executive director was tied up for 9 months in this suit, and Judge Thomas Zugaby, of course, dismissed all the counts and called the suit meritless. So that was 9 months of litigating for pretty much nothing. Now, as we move forward, into the next couple of years, Rockland Green is budgeting $3.1 million in legal fees for 2024, but those figures are likely to climb. We don't know those numbers yet, and we won't know those numbers until March. And then similarly, they budgeted that same amount, $3.1 million for 2025, and again, it's not likely to hold because this Hightor case is likely to. Well, we know it's at least going to stretch until May because that's when all of the discovery is due. I happened to be in the courtroom when the first hearing took place, what they call a scheduling conference. No big deal, just usually what the schedule is for discovery and when the lawyers have to file all their papers and briefs, what have you. So in the courtroom was both Lawrence Garvey and Lee Apotheker, who's an attorney from an outside counsel firm called Westlaw. And for some reason, Rockland Green seems to need to send two attorneys to this very simple, conference, which was I think it was quite odd. So what we're looking at here is it's taxpayers. We are paying, the taxpayers are paying for this. And, it's just interesting to note that Rockland Green's legal budget actually exceeds its payroll. And they also, by the way, they have at least two in-house counsels and a paralegal, and outside counsel. And almost all of this is around the proposed shelter and this lawsuit that Rockland Green is locked in with Hightor. With regard to that suit, Rockland Green sued Hightor for breach of contract, but then Hightower countersued and countersued against Rockland Green, also claiming a breach of contract because Rockland Green never gave Hightower the necessary 30 days notice or written 30 days notice and time to cure an ill when it just chucked them out and decided to end the contract. So you have a case now that's probably very likely going to stretch over the course of, I guess, at least the year, continue to cost taxpayers money. And according to legal minds, not my own, but according to several legal minds who I've spoken to on this topic, it's very unlikely that either side will probably walk away, as a victor. In the end of the day, what can we expect? I don't know. Maybe some kind of quote unquote settlement where each side goes away with nothing because it's that kind of dispute. So it really just what's very troubling is that you've got a quasi public authority that is spending taxpayer money on litigation that may end up going nowhere, that has gone nowhere for 9 months. That was kind of it seems like it's all for nothing. So very troubling.
What's also very troubling, though, Tina, and I don't think you'll disagree with me, is that we have been trying, and when I say we, I mean the people in Rockland County, people who depend upon this service, have been yearning for a new shelter that is worthy of Rockland County's name and worthy of the animals that are trying to be protected by the people who want to protect all these animals and give them a better life with other families or protect them from the ills of the streets, and we still have nothing to show for it. When is that? And that's what we hear calls from people every time we're on the air. When is the shelter going to be built? When is the shelter going to be built? And we still have nowhere gotten anywhere near that.
Well, the two things. First of all, that has nothing to do with the lawsuit, but I agree with you. And the second thing is we could have already had a shelter built if the legislature had stood its ground and bonded for $10 million, and we would have had a brand new shelter at the current location in Pomona. The problem is, and 525 people have signed a petition opposing this proposed shelter because the location is absolutely, they believe it's absolutely the wrong place.
What's better? What's a better location?
The existing location.
Okay, we've heard from the Fire Training Center folks that it's not a good location because they don't make a good neighbor for all the training and that they do there. So they've wanted them to. They thought it would be better if they move out. So let's assume that that's not a good location. What's a better location if not either of those two?
Well, Letchworth for one. There's tons of empty property up in Letchworth, both on the Stony Point side and on the Haverstraw side. I mean, acres and acres and acres of rotting buildings and open land,
which all are filled with asbestos and will be a tremendous cost in and of itself.
There's plenty of open space on both of those properties where a shelter could be built. There are other places in the county where a shelter could be built, and also, my understanding is that the Fire Training Center, I think they want that land, but there's no danger to the shelter for it to be built next to the Fire Training Center. It's been there 60 years, and it's what the plan was all along, was to rebuild on that location. So, we could, as a community, we could certainly debate what's a better location, but I think what at least, the community and 525 people have decided is that a location that is sandwiched in between two landfills, one leaching methane, and also we've got radio-controlled airplanes, which are going to be a grueling noise. On the other side of Ecology Road, you've got a 454,000 square foot 24/7 warehouse that's coming down the pike. Across the street, a stone's throw, you have the sewer authority, which emits a noxious odor. Literally across the street, you have an old car auto place that also has environmental issues. I mean, you couldn't pick a more toxic location than that location. So anyway, I wanted to move on just to talk about the Knights, unless you want to keep talking.
No, that's fine. We can move on. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. And so on another subject, okay, also, the Knights were set to, they were set to have a sale of their building for $2.4 million, an amount that would have given them an endowment for the rest of their lives and then some. And then at the last minute, there was likely an illegal a meeting that violated the Open Meetings Act. This is about a year or so ago. And somehow Mr. Phillips convinced the Knights to donate their building. The long and short of it is that part of the donation was he sweetened the deal by giving the Knights not only $7,000 a month of taxpayer money, again, that's what we're talking about, taxpayer money, going forward, this was 6 months into the year, but also retroactively. The tally in our latest story indicates that the town of Haverstraw has paid the Knights upwards of $150,000 and more. There's other expenses that haven't been factored. And now the deal is off. The deal is off. They're not going to be donating the building to Haverstraw. There are a lot of factors in play right now as to what will happen with that building and what will be the fate of that building. But the bottom line is that at a time when Haverstraw was the only Rockland town that broke the tax cap this year, at the very same time, they're funding a Catholic fraternity, which has been able to turn around and take $7,000 a month and, spread it around to, their chosen charities, which is all fine and well, but essentially it's taxpayer money that's funding, that's doing the work of the Knights. So this is very, very problematic. And, it's presumed, that this deal was in the making for quite a while. However, at the same time, as we have reported, several different entities were going to had sent complaints to the Attorney General Charity Bureau because the Charity Bureau would have had to sign off on this deal, and it was obvious that the Attorney General had received a raft of complaints about this deal for many different reasons. Including the fact that it was ultimately violating the separation of church and state. So the bottom line is that that's up in the air, and while that gets determined and whether we ever see the affordable housing built there that was supposed to be built there, in the meantime, the taxpayers of Haverstraw are out $150,000 and then some. Plus, there is likely going to be possibly a lawsuit around this too. So, these actions cost money to the taxpayer, and that's what we're talking today. That's why we're following the money. That's what's alarming, and that's what taxpayers need to know.
We do appreciate you getting all that information and sharing it with us. Thank you so much for your time, as always, Tina. If you want to learn more, just go to rcbizjournal.com and check out all the different articles that are there and sign up for newsletters and all that stuff. Thank you so much, Tina. Have yourself a great week.
You too. Bye.